Despite the COVID-19 pandemic and the resultant challenging operating environment in the country, Nigeria's foremost Pan-African financial and investment services group, United Capital PLC, has announced its audited report for the full year ended December 31st, 2020, recording double-digit growth across all its major income lines. According to the financial report for the year 2020, investment institution leveraged on increased efficiency to deliver an impressive 61% year-on-year growth in profit before tax to 7.9 billion naira, compared with 4.95 billion naira at the end of 2019. Profit after tax stood at 7.81 billion naira, showing an increase of 57% above the 4.97 billion naira it closed in 2019. The company also recorded a 50% year-on-year growth in gross earnings to close at 12.87 billion naira in December 2020, compared to 8.59 billion naira recorded in the similar period in 2019. Group Chief Executive Officer of United Capital PLC, Mr. Peter Ashade, who expressed delight on the performance, says the company remains committed to providing best-in-class solutions to diverse client segments and delivering superior returns to shareholders in the year 2021. Nigeria is an economy that is largely dependent on crude oil, and with the crash in crude oil prices caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, government's revenue as well as foreign exchange generation has been greatly affected. Since 1986, Nigeria has pursued an export-led strategy which includes emphasis on non-oil exports such as cocoa, groundnut, cotton, palm produce, rubber and grains, owing to perennial fluctuations in the prices of oil in the international market. Now, one institution of this export strategy was the establishment of the Nigerian Export-Import Bank, NEXIM, in 1991 to ensure sustainable growth of finance and risk-bearing services to exporters. Now, over the years, NEXIM has played a leading role in defining the country's export market, and with the current leadership, the agency has established lots of initiatives to grow the nation's non-oil exports sector as, of course, drivers of economic growth. As the African Continental Free Trade Agreement becomes operational, well, already operational, just trying to tighten up some teething issues that Nigeria is having, we will be discussing how NEXIM Bank is prepared to take full advantage of the agreements in promoting non-oil exports. I have the right man for this discussion. He's the Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Export-Import Bank, Mr. Abba Bello. He's joining us live from our Abuja studios. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Bello. I appreciate this.
Good afternoon, Tolu. How are you?
Yes, I'm very well. Let me start where we've seen a number of rapid growth and transformation in economies of Hong Kong, Singapore, South Africa, and Taiwan as a result of export-led strategy. Now, we know a lot is being done, but first, do you think Nigeria can trail this path? I see you. I don't know if you got my question.
Well, I think it was breaking from here. I couldn't hear you. I heard the first part of the question, but I didn't hear what you said.
I was talking about the transformation experienced in countries like Hong Kong, Singapore, and South Korea, as a result of their export-led strategy. Can Nigeria trail this path?
It's breaking. What?
Okay, Mr. CEO, if you can hear me, let's go. I'm talking about export-led strategies now. Do you think Nigeria is on the right path to actualizing this?
Okay, Tolu,
go ahead.
I think I got the question, putting it together. Export-led economy, export-led strategy that these East Asian countries adopted in the 70s and 80s is what saw the turnaround of those countries from being primarily third world countries into fast-moving developing countries. Now, What is an export-led strategy? It is opening up your country to international trade. And as it is different from an import substitution economy, which a lot of the developing countries adopted as at then. Now, the disadvantage of an import-led, import substitution strategy is that there is protection of industry, which leads to inefficiencies and uncompetitiveness. At the end of the day, there is no growth, okay? So the East Asian countries adopted an export strategy that will open up their countries to international competition, and of course, the attendant benefits that come with it is creation of jobs, earnings from foreign revenues, and so on and so forth. And that's what made those countries develop into the fastest moving developing economies today. Now, going to your question, if it's a strategy Nigeria should adopt, I think that is the way to go. And the benefits cannot be overemphasized. Today, Nigeria is primarily a primary exporter of cash crops, okay, with no value addition. What we need to do to have a very effective export strategy is to industrialize. We have to be able to attract foreign direct investment in the manufacturing sector, which is what the East Asian countries did because of low labor costs, other benefits that the industrialized nations now saw a benefit in bringing investments into those countries to produce, outsource and produce for the rest of the world. And that's what drove export strategy. To achieve this, there are certain things that Nigeria has to do. Provide the enabling environment, industrialize, and attract foreign direct investments, especially today in the context of Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Nigeria already has an advantage of being the manufacturing hub of West Africa, which can be expanded into the region, Central, and indeed the rest of Africa. So it's a strategy that needs to be adopted by the Nigerian economy to be an export-driven economy. We cannot continue to depend on being an import-dependent economy.
I totally agree with you, Mr. CEO. But the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, which you touched on, is where I'm going to continue from. It will require a number of exportation from Africa's biggest economy. Are we ready for the task ahead, this big market?
Currently, we probably have an advantage because the rest of Africa, and most specifically West Africa, we have homogeneous products. Most of the region produces the same thing. So the country that will have an advantage is the country that industrializes. Already, Nigeria has more manufacturing capacity or industrial capacity than our neighbors. As a matter of fact, the Nigerian Industrial Revolution Roadmap has Nigeria's aspiration is to be the industrial hub of West Africa and one of the two in Africa. Now, we have to take that advantage. But like I mentioned earlier, the infrastructural gaps that we have, what is limiting us today is the infrastructural gaps that we have in Nigeria, as well as making it a good and enabling environment for FDIs to come in. Already, the current government has done a lot in trying to bridge the infrastructural gap and is still doing enough, as well as the activity of the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, which has seen us gradually improve in providing the right environment for investments to come into the country. Now, talking about the advantage that Nigeria already has within West Africa and indeed Central Africa, majority of, or a lot lot of Nigeria's manufactured products in cement, in fast-moving consumer goods, foods, healthcare, and so on, in plastics, in other light manufactured goods, are all across the region. But how? The trade is informal. AFCFTA now gives Nigeria the opportunity to bring this trade onto the formal platform and the benefits realized into the economy. Aside from that, it opens up the market for Nigeria. West Africa alone gives an opportunity to double the population in which Nigeria's industrialization and manufacturing capacity serves. Okay? Talk less of Africa that is today 1.2 billion people. So we must continue to position ourselves to be the industrial hub of both West Africa and indeed Africa to be able to take advantage of AFCFTA and the benefits it brings to the economy.
Indeed, very interesting. Before we move to some of the workings of the NEXIM Bank itself, we have also been doing well in exportation of some non-oil products. We see reports from the NEPC and all of that, like groundnuts, cocoa, cotton, palm produce. What prospects do you see for our country in the export of finished goods gotten from these raw materials? Is that part of the infrastructure thing you're talking about?
More of industrialization and processing. Incidentally, Tolu, Nigeria today is one of the largest producers of so many cash crops. When you speak of cocoa, probably third, fourth, or fifth largest producer of cocoa. You speak of ginger, probably the sixth largest producer. You speak of shea, the largest producer of shea. But when you look at the returns that come from the export of these products in the non-oil export of Nigeria, you see that it's not much. Why? Because we have been primary producers to the world. We are down at the bottom of the pyramid or the value chain for each of these products. For us to realize greater value for these products, we have to process them. We have to move up the global value chain. And I'll give you an example. Cocoa. The global cocoa business per annum is $130 billion. Africa, and in fact, West Africa produces 75% of global cocoa. That is between Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, Nigeria, and Cameroon. But because all we do across the coast is sell to the whole world cocoa beans, out of the $130 billion, Africa gets somewhere around $10 billion. That is not enough. We must move up the value chain. This increases up to 40% if you process beans to cocoa butter. At least that moves the revenue that comes into Africa by 40%. And I think that is where we should focus on. So like you said, we're doing a lot of exports, but the value of those exports is very minimal. And to get the maximum value, we have to move up the global value chain.
Yes, now going to the workings of NEXIM, a lot is expected as an export credit agency set up to drive economic growth through finance projects and all of that. We see the current management of the bank doing pretty well. Profit of 1.09 billion naira in 2018, 2.13 billion in 2019, 1.28 billion in 2020. Take us through some of the workings and how you got to this point.
Okay. When the current management got into NEXIM, the bank was operating suboptimally and virtually not contributing to the economy. And when I say that, what is important for a development finance institution is that you must be able to contribute what your mandate says you should contribute to the economy. And for us, it is diversification of the economy, foreign earnings for the economy, which means repatriation of export proceeds into the country, and also create other social development responsibilities like creation of jobs. So when we got into NEXIM, somehow the bank was not meeting those aspirations. And we had to do something very, very quickly. One of the things we did was to try and refocus the bank and redefine what our role is and how much we should contribute to the economy. And we emphasized. So we had to find ways of, first thing we needed to do actually was to refund the bank, because there were so many projects that were not working well, and so on and so forth. So with the help of our owners, the stakeholders of the bank, we were refunded. And when I say refunded, not as in giving one, we were given more funds to start business. And thank God, today we've contributed significantly, though not enough because we're still growing, to some of those lines that we were supposed to be meeting to ensure that we're contributing significantly to the economy. And I'll give you an example. From the setup of NEXIM up until 2017, the bank contributed only $1.1 billion to the economy. And in 2 years, the current management has generated in foreign revenues $203 million. And in Naira terms, that's 72 billion Naira. It's not much, it's still a tip of the iceberg, but this is the growth time for NEXIM, and we think we have turned the corner and we are going to be more impactful in our contribution to the economy.
It's important that we touch on COVID-19.
Now, some of the things we are doing, sorry to
go ahead.
We are doing. I've spoken of the need to start the process of industrializing our cash crop exports, moving up the global value chain. So it is very important that we move some of our exporters into processing. So we coined an acronym, right? Because NEXIM wants to be part of the whole export value chain in producing, right? That is for the cash crops, being from the input stage, the farms, and what have you, to adding value of the output and then export. So we have adopted what is akin to the what is being done on the Anchor Borrowers Program for rice and other food crops. We have extended it to cash crops now, to now say we're going to participate riding on the zero oil plan that is being driven by NEPC and is part of the export economic recovery and growth plan, that we're going to put money behind the one state, one product, one export product scheme that is being driven by NEPC to ensure that we boost production of cash crops. After boosting production of cash crops, we're also there to provide processing equipment for those cash crops, at least move it 1 or 2 steps up the global value chain and export. That is the role we're playing. We finance both the trade of the crops because it takes time to put the capacity in place, but that is where we're migrating the exporters of Nigeria from primary products to manufactured products or processed products. And we believe that is what will bring in more value for the economy rather than doing the primary products.
Okay, almost finally, it's going to be a 2-in-1 question now, because I was about asking you one and one again popped into my mind. Impact of COVID-19 on your businesses, which has necessitated interest rates, rebates, and all of that. How did that affect your balance sheet, and how well do we expect you to keep up this clean balance sheet and improve risk management practices in your business?
Okay, thank you, Tolu, for that question. The impact it has had on us is that I think you mentioned earlier when you started speaking about NEXIM, how we have grown from 2017, 2018, 2019, and then suddenly there was a dip in our profitability. At the onset, precisely a year ago, when the lockdown, COVID, and the pandemic caused a lockdown, the federal government, as well as the Central Bank of Nigeria, offered to beneficiaries of DFIs palliatives to cushion the impact of the pandemic. And one of the things that we had to do was to cut interest rates. Okay? We also gave moratoriums for various tenors, and indeed we're even going to extend that moratorium at this time, so that the impact of the pandemic is not felt by the producers and exporters of Nigerian products. How has it affected us? It has affected our profitability, and it has also affected our liquidity because of the long moratorium periods that we have given. Now, how have we cushioned that? As far as profitability is concerned, what we have to do, we also had to cut our coat to ensure that our expenses are also controlled, to ensure that the little revenues we're getting following our palliatives add value to you. But the important one is the liquidity, okay? Because every business without liquidity suffers. The central bank has come to our aid and given us other more money to cover this period of the pandemic, as well as a facility that we have secured from Afrexim Bank, which is an interventionist facility to cover the period under which this pandemic has caused a disruption of our business. So we have managed pretty well despite the pandemic, but it has slowed our growth. When we started out, we thought by now we should have taken our balance sheet to about 300 or 350 billion naira. We are somewhere around half now, and but we haven't given up. We think not.